You did not stumble into this moment. Heaven does not scatter its appointments across the calendar like loose change. Your name was held back, sealed, protected from the noise of earlier seasons, because the weight it carries could only be released when the ground under your feet was ready to hold it. That ground is ready now. The hour has arrived. The silence that covered you was never absence. It was strategy. It was sovereignty choosing the exact second the veil would lift. This is not random. This is not the leftover scrap of someone else's timeline. You were summoned here while the rest of the world kept moving in its ordinary circles. The same God who numbered the hairs on your head also numbered the days until this announcement could be spoken without distortion. You feel the shift already, don't you? That quiet pressure behind the ribs, the sense that something long delayed has finally lined up. It is not imagination. It is recognition. Heaven has been waiting for your attention to settle in this exact place so the next word could land clean. You were not overlooked. You were hidden. There is a difference. Overlooked means forgotten. Hidden means guarded. Your name sat in a private place, away from the mouths that would have misused it, away from the assignments that would have drained it before its time. The enemy searched for it. People who meant well still spoke over it too early. Heaven kept the true name locked until the frequency of this moment matched the frequency written on it. That match has happened. The lock has turned. Look at the path that brought you here. The closed doors that frustrated you. The delays that felt like punishment. The seasons when nothing moved no matter how hard you pushed. Those were not failures. They were the covering. While the name stayed hidden, the preparation continued in secret. Character was tempered. Discernment sharpened. Old attachments loosened their grip. You thought you were stuck. You were being positioned. The appointed hour does not arrive for the unprepared. It arrives when the vessel can carry what is about to be poured. Something in you has known this. Even on the days you doubted, a deeper knowing kept whispering that the story was not finished. That whisper was not your own voice. It was the Spirit keeping time with the calendar of heaven. You did not manufacture the hunger that brought you to these words. The hunger was planted. The hunger was timed. And the hunger is being answered right now, in the open, without apology. The book of Habakkuk says the vision is for an appointed time. Though it tarries, wait for it. It will not lie. It will speak at the end and not delay. You have lived inside that waiting. You have felt the stretch of days that refused to hurry. You have watched others receive what looked like your portion while your hands stayed empty. That emptiness was not rejection. It was the space being cleared so the true portion could arrive without competition. The appointed time is no longer future. It is present. The vision that tarried has reached its hour. The speaking has begun. Today is not ordinary. Tonight is not ordinary. The hours stretching out from this moment carry a different weight. Heaven has marked them. Angels have been given new instructions concerning you. The atmosphere around your name has shifted from concealment to release. What was sealed is being unsealed. What was delayed is being accelerated. You will not need to force the doors. The doors that belong to this season will recognize the sound of the name that was kept for this hour and they will open of their own accord. Ecclesiastes tells us there is a time for every purpose under heaven. A time to keep silent and a time to speak. A time to plant and a time to uproot what was planted. You have walked through the silent season. You have planted in tears when no one was watching. The uprooting of old limitations has already started beneath the surface. The speaking season has arrived. The purpose attached to your name is stepping into the light. It will not look like the smaller purposes you once chased. It will look like the original design written before the foundations of the world. Feel the difference in the air around you. The old heaviness that sat on certain decisions is lifting. The confusion that clouded certain relationships is thinning. This is not positive thinking. This is alignment. When heaven decides the hidden name can be spoken, the environment adjusts to make room for it. Circumstances that resisted you will begin to rearrange. People who could not see you will suddenly perceive the weight you carry. Opportunities that stayed just out of reach will step closer because the timing has finally matched the call. You have wondered why certain prayers seem to bounce back unanswered. You have asked why the breakthrough kept circling but never landing. The answer is simple and it is kind. The name had not yet been released. Prayers spoken over a still hidden identity travel a different path. They are stored. They are refined. They wait for the moment the identity is revealed so the answers can arrive in the correct measure. That moment is here. The stored prayers are being released with interest. The refined answers are moving toward you even as these words settle in your spirit. Do not look for the shift in the places you used to watch. The old markers will not announce it. The shift is already underway in the unseen, and the seen will catch up in the days ahead. You will notice small confirmations first. A conversation that opens without effort. A resource that appears without striving. A peace that settles in a place where anxiety used to live. Those are the early signs. They are not the full measure. They are the first fruits of a name that is no longer hidden. Heaven kept your name hidden because the assignment attached to it is too precise to be rushed. Precision requires protection. Protection requires patience. Patience has finished its work. The name is rising. The assignment is activating. Everything that refused to move is about to shift because the one who carries the name has finally stepped into the hour prepared for it. You are not waiting any longer for permission. The permission was written into the timing itself. The same sovereignty that hid the name is now speaking it. The same hand that covered you is now uncovering you. Stand still for a moment and let that land. The covering is lifting. The light is finding the place where your true name was written. And once that light reaches it, nothing remains the same. The core of what is happening is this: God kept your name hidden until this exact moment so that the shift could be complete, irreversible, and timed to the second. Not a partial shift. Not a temporary relief. A full reordering of the atmosphere around your life. The hidden season ends here. The revealed season begins with the weight of heaven behind it. You will walk differently because the name you carry is no longer silent. It is being declared. It is being honored. It is being given room to function at full strength. Every delay that frustrated you was a servant of this moment. Every closed door trained your eyes to recognize the open ones that belong to the revealed name. Every lonely stretch taught you to hear the quiet voice that never left. None of it was wasted. All of it was preparation for the hour when the name could no longer stay hidden without dishonoring the purpose it carries. You feel the acceleration already. Decisions that once required months of deliberation will clarify in days. Connections that felt strained will either heal or release without the old drama. Provision that looked impossible will find pathways you did not construct. This is the fruit of a name that has been held in the council of heaven until the earth was ready to receive it. The earth is ready. You are ready. The moment is ready. Do not shrink back from the size of what is coming. The hidden years made the vessel strong enough. The waiting refined the motives. The silence taught you the difference between noise and true sound. You are not stepping into this shift as the same person who entered the hidden season. You are stepping in carrying the exact measure of maturity the assignment requires. Heaven does not release names early. Heaven releases them when the bearer can walk in them without apology and without excess. The shift is not coming. The shift has begun. It started the instant the appointed hour opened and the name that was sealed was spoken again in the courts of heaven. That speaking has already altered the trajectory of everything connected to you. Watch for the evidence. It will not always be loud. Sometimes it will be the quiet rearrangement of a single circumstance that used to block an entire road. Sometimes it will be the sudden clarity that cuts through months of fog. However it appears, recognize it as the fruit of a name no longer hidden. You were kept for this. You were prepared for this. You were timed for this. The God who writes names also writes the hours in which those names are allowed to surface. Your hour has surfaced. The concealment ends. The revealing begins. And with the revealing comes the full force of everything that was stored, refined, and held in reserve until the exact second it could be released without loss. Stay in this knowing. Let it settle deeper than the surface emotions that rise and fall. The surface will fluctuate. The knowing will not. The name has been spoken. The shift is underway. Nothing that belongs to the old hidden season has authority to remain once the light of the appointed hour has found its mark. The loneliness that sat with you in empty rooms was never proof that you had been abandoned. It was the quiet workshop where heaven shaped the edges of your discernment so you would stop confusing noise for guidance. What looked like isolation was the deliberate clearing of every voice that could not carry the weight of the name now being released. Rejection from people who once mattered felt like a door slamming in your face. It was actually the hand of protection removing the ones who would have diluted the assignment the moment it surfaced. Delay stretched longer than your patience thought it could bear. That stretch was the exact pressure required to break the old identity free from the new one without tearing the vessel in the process. You counted the nights when no one called and called it failure. Heaven counted those same nights as investment. The misunderstanding that followed you from one circle to the next, the sideways glances, the quiet judgments that left you explaining yourself until your voice grew tired, those were not evidence against you. They were evidence that the frequency of your life had already shifted beyond what those environments could interpret. You were being prepared in plain sight while remaining invisible to the wrong eyes. Every time you walked away from a conversation feeling smaller, something larger was being forged underneath the surface. The pain did not define the season. The purpose inside the pain defined it. What looked like loss was the removal of every counterfeit covering so the true covering could settle without competition. The friendships that faded, the opportunities that evaporated just when they seemed certain, the plans that collapsed under their own weight, none of them were random casualties. Each one was a strategic subtraction. Heaven does not subtract without intention. The empty spaces left behind were measured precisely so that when the name rose, there would be room for the people, the provision, and the authority that belonged to the revealed season. You felt the ache of subtraction. You were not meant to feel the full measure of addition until the subtraction finished its work. Being misunderstood trained you to stop performing for approval and start standing in the quiet certainty of what heaven already declared over you. The years of explaining yourself were not wasted breath. They were the slow dismantling of the need to be seen correctly by human eyes. Once that need loosened, the deeper sight could open. You learned to recognize the difference between the rejection that wounds the flesh and the rejection that protects the calling. One leaves scars that demand healing. The other leaves clarity that demands courage. You carry both, and both have finished their assignment. I remember sitting on the edge of a bed in a small apartment that smelled of old carpet and leftover coffee, the only light coming from a street lamp outside the window. My phone had gone silent for 3 days after a family gathering where every question felt like an accusation and every silence felt heavier than words. I asked God why the people who should have known me best could not see the shift happening inside me. I questioned his timing out loud into the dark room, voice cracking, tears hitting the blanket between my knees. The air felt thick. I waited for an answer that did not come in the form I wanted. Instead, a single sentence settled in my chest so quietly I almost missed it: the ones who cannot see you yet are not the ones assigned to walk with you when the name is spoken. That night did not end with fireworks. It ended with me lying back against the pillow, exhausted, yet somehow lighter, knowing the misunderstanding had been a boundary, not a verdict. The next morning the same phone rang with a voice that did not need explanation. The contrast was the confirmation. You were never meant to carry the full weight of other people's inability to recognize what heaven was forming. Their blindness protected the process. Their distance created the space where the real preparation could continue without interruption. The nights you cried into the quiet were recorded. The questions you threw at the ceiling were heard. None of them returned void. They became the raw material from which endurance was built. Endurance is not the absence of pain. It is the decision to keep moving while the pain is still present, trusting that the same hand that allowed the pressure will also lift it at the exact second the work is complete. The pain of delay taught you the difference between forcing a door and waiting for the one that opens because your name is written on it. Forced doors always demand a price that costs more than the room on the other side is worth. The door prepared for this hour requires no force. It recognizes the sound of the name that was kept hidden and swings wide because the timing has matched the call. Everything that felt like being left behind was actually the careful positioning of your feet on the only path that could lead to the shift now underway. Scripture speaks of the God who forms light and creates darkness, who makes peace and creates calamity. Isaiah records it plainly. The same sovereignty that allowed the dark seasons also authored the light that is breaking in now. The darkness was never the final word. It was the canvas against which the light would become unmistakable. You walked through both, and both were under the same hand. You have read it yourself in the letter to the Romans: all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. The lonely hours, the rejected invitations, the delayed answers, the constant feeling of being slightly out of place, every one of them is being woven into the good that belongs to this appointed window. The weaving did not start when the pain ended. The weaving started while the pain was still present. That is why the shift feels both sudden and long prepared at the same time. Jeremiah heard the word that the plans are for welfare and not for evil, to give a future and a hope. Those plans were never paused during the hidden years. They were simply kept out of sight until the vessel could hold them without cracking. The future spoken over you is not a distant possibility. It is the natural outcome of a name that has been protected long enough to emerge at full strength. Hope is no longer a concept you reach for. It is the atmosphere settling around the revealed identity. Peter wrote that after you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace will himself restore, confirm, strengthen, and establish you. The little while felt long because you measured it against human calendars. Heaven measured it against the exact amount of pressure required to finish the work. Restoration is not the return of everything you lost. It is the arrival of everything that was always meant to remain once the temporary coverings were removed. Confirmation is the quiet inner witness that the shift is real. Strength is the capacity to walk in the new weight without collapsing. Establishment is the settling of your feet on ground that will not give way when the next season demands more. The Book of Psalms declares that even the darkness is not dark to him. Night shines as the day. The nights that felt endless to you were transparent to the one who watched over the process. Nothing about your pain was hidden from the counsel that timed its release. Nothing about the misunderstanding escaped the notice of the one who allowed it for a purpose larger than the temporary sting. You were seen in every room where you felt invisible. You were held in every moment you felt dropped. The same eyes that kept the name hidden also kept you. These truths are not comfort layered on top of the past. They are the actual architecture of what happened. The loneliness was architecture. The rejection was architecture. The delay was architecture. All of it built the capacity for the shift that has already begun. You do not have to dig for meaning in the pain. The meaning has been present the entire time, waiting for the hour when the name could surface and the architecture could finally be recognized for what it always was. The preparation is complete. The protection has served its purpose. The hidden work is finished. What remains is the open road of the revealed season, and the strength to walk it without looking back at the rooms that could not contain what you carry now. The change will not stay on the surface of your days. It will move into the marrow of how you move through them. You will not simply think differently about the path ahead. Your body will carry a different weight when you stand. The way your shoulders settle when you enter a room will shift. The sound of your own voice when you speak a decision will carry a resonance that was not there before. This is not cosmetic adjustment. This is the full arrival of an identity that was held in reserve until the hour matched the capacity. Watch how the old hesitation begins to lose its grip. Decisions that once required weeks of internal debate will clarify in the span of a single afternoon. Conversations that used to leave you second-guessing for days will end with a settled knowing that does not need further proof. The physical sensation of dread that used to rise in certain environments will thin and then vanish, replaced by a quiet authority that does not announce itself yet cannot be ignored. You will walk into places that once drained you and leave them fuller than when you arrived. That is the mark of a name no longer hidden. The atmosphere around you adjusts because the one carrying the name has stepped fully into the frequency it was always meant to hold. You will notice it first in the smallest movements. The way your hand reaches for the phone without the old tremor of uncertainty. The way your feet take the next step on a path that used to feel unstable. The way your chest expands when you breathe in the morning instead of contracting against an invisible pressure. These are not minor upgrades. They are the early evidence that the internal architecture has changed. The hidden years built the structure. The revealed hour is filling that structure with living power. You will not have to manufacture the difference. The difference will manufacture itself in every ordinary hour that follows. The relationships that remain will feel the shift even if they cannot name it. People who once spoke over you will pause. People who once overlooked you will lean in without understanding why. The ones assigned to the new season will recognize the change in your presence the way a tuned instrument recognizes the correct key. No performance required. No explanation demanded. The substance itself will do the introducing. You are becoming the kind of person whose entrance rearranges the room without a single word spoken. That is the natural result of a name that has been spoken in the higher courts and is now free to function on the earth. I was standing in the back of a nearly empty church sanctuary one weekday afternoon, the only light coming through high stained glass windows that threw colored patches across the carpet. The building smelled of polished wood and old hymnals. I had come in to pray about a decision that felt too large for the resources I could see, and the doubt that rose was sharp and specific. What if the calling is real but the provision never matches it? What if I step forward and discover the ground gives way under the weight? I sat on the front pew and let the question hang in the quiet air for a long time. No dramatic answer arrived. Instead, a slow, steady sense settled that the same God who authored the call had already measured the supply against every future demand. I left that sanctuary without a new bank balance or a sudden open door. I left with a body that felt less braced against collapse. The fear did not vanish in a single moment. It simply lost its authority to dictate the next step. Weeks later the provision arrived through a channel I had not been watching, and the memory of that quiet pew became the reference point that kept me from shrinking when the next large decision appeared. The escalation continues beyond the internal. External structures that resisted you will begin to yield because the resistance was never about the structures themselves. It was about the timing of the name. Once the name is active, the structures realign. Contracts that stalled will move. Applications that sat unanswered will receive response. Spaces that felt closed will open without the old struggle. You will not need to push harder. You will need to stand in the new weight and let the weight itself do the work. The physical world responds to spiritual substance. When the substance increases, the response increases. That is the law of the kingdom operating in plain sight. You have been prepared for a different kind of visibility. Not the shallow kind that demands constant performance. The kind that carries responsibility and authority in equal measure. The eyes that find you now will not be looking for entertainment. They will be looking for the steady presence of someone who has walked through the hidden years and emerged without bitterness. That presence cannot be faked. It is the residue of every private battle that was won in silence. It is the calm that remains after the storm has done its refining work. You will carry it into rooms that once intimidated you, and the intimidation will dissolve because the one who walks in is no longer the same. 2 Corinthians declares that if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. This is not poetic language. It is the precise description of what is unfolding in you. The old patterns of response, the old measurements of worth, the old expectations of how far you could go, those have been written over. The new is not an improved version of the previous self. It is a different substance entirely, carrying a different capacity and a different assignment. The new creation does not apologize for the space it occupies. It simply occupies it with the authority given by the one who made it new. Ephesians records that we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. The works were prepared long before the hidden season began. The hidden season was the training ground that made the walking possible. Now the path is open. The works are no longer distant possibilities. They are the natural expression of a life that has stepped into its prepared design. You will find yourself doing things that once felt beyond your reach, not because you suddenly became more talented, but because the design is finally free to function without the old restraints. Philippians states with quiet confidence that he who began a good work in you will bring it to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. The work did not stall during the years of silence. It continued underground, root systems deepening, strength accumulating in places no one could see. The completion is not a future event you must strain toward. It is the steady unfolding of what was already set in motion. Every step you take in this revealed hour is a step inside that completion. The one who started it remains responsible for finishing it. Your part is to keep walking in the new weight without shrinking back to the old measurements. Hebrews reminds us that he will never leave you nor forsake you. The presence that kept the name hidden is the same presence that walks beside the name now that it is spoken. You are not being released into the open road alone. The companionship that sustained you in the quiet rooms continues without interruption into the public ones. The difference is that the companionship now operates through a vessel that can carry more, speak more, and stand more firmly. The forsaking never happened. The leaving never occurred. The sense of distance was only the temporary sensation of a process that required focused attention on the internal work. John records the words of Jesus saying that you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you that you should go and bear fruit, and that your fruit should remain. The choosing happened before the hidden years. The appointing happened in the council of heaven. The fruit that remains is the fruit that can only grow from a life whose name has been fully released. Temporary fruit grows from temporary identity. Remaining fruit grows from the identity that has been protected, refined, and then set free at the exact hour it could sustain the weight of permanence. That hour is the one you are standing in. The fruit that comes now will not wither when the next season arrives. It will remain because the root system was built in the dark and the name was kept until the light could meet it without damage. The intensity rises because the capacity has risen. You are no longer being asked to survive the process. You are being invited to walk in the finished result of the process. The physical difference will become undeniable. The internal difference will become unshakable. The external difference will become measurable in the decisions that move, the doors that open, and the peace that settles where pressure used to live. Everything is aligning to the frequency of a name that is no longer silent. The road ahead does not require the old armor. It requires the new substance. And the new substance is already present, already active, already changing the way you occupy every ordinary moment that follows. The shift will not ask permission from your old limitations. It will rewrite the way your blood moves through your veins when you wake. Your hands will stop trembling around decisions that once required every ounce of borrowed courage. The muscles in your jaw will unclench permanently because the need to brace against disappointment has been removed at the root. You will sleep through the night without the old rehearsals of worst-case scenarios playing behind your closed eyes. When you rise, the first breath will carry a density of purpose that settles into the lungs and does not leave. This is not emotional uplift. This is cellular rearrangement. The body itself is being recalibrated to carry a name that no longer hides. Every room you enter will register the difference before you speak. Floors will feel more solid under your feet. Ceilings will seem higher. The air will thin of the old static that used to make ordinary conversations feel like negotiations. People will step aside without knowing why. Conversations will pause mid-sentence when you arrive, not from fear, but from the sudden recognition that something weightier has entered the space. You will not perform this authority. It will radiate from the marrow outward until the physical environment yields. Doors that required force will swing at the lightest touch of your intention. Contracts that stalled for months will sign themselves into existence within days. Money that refused to move will find the shortest path to your hands because the resistance was never financial. It was temporal, and the time has expired. Your voice will change in a throat before it changes in the ears of others. Words that once caught on hesitation will leave your mouth with clean edges. The pitch will settle lower, steadier, carrying the quiet thunder of someone who has been rewritten from the inside. When you say no, the word will land with finality that needs no defense. When you say yes, the commitment will rearrange schedules and resources around it without the old scramble. Your eyes will hold a different light. The tired squint of survival will give way to the open gaze of someone who knows the ground beneath them will not collapse. Strangers will feel it across a crowded space. Familiar faces will struggle to reconcile the person they thought they knew with the one now standing in front of them. The discrepancy is the evidence. You are not becoming impressive. You are becoming inevitable. The old body kept score of every rejection, every delay, every night spent calculating how much longer the waiting could last. That scoreboard is being erased at the level of nerve and bone. The tension that lived between your shoulder blades for years is releasing in layers. The knot in the stomach that announced itself before every difficult conversation is dissolving. You will catch yourself standing taller without effort. You will notice your stride lengthening on sidewalks you have walked 1,000 times. The physical world is responding to a spiritual substance that has reached critical mass. Nothing about this is subtle any longer. The hidden work has finished its quiet phase. The open phase will be measurable in the way your presence occupies square footage, in the way time itself seems to slow when you need clarity and accelerate when you need momentum. I was sitting alone in a parked car on the shoulder of a 2-lane road just after midnight, rain hammering the roof so hard the sound became a continuous roar. The dashboard lights were the only illumination. I had pulled over because the doubt that night was specific and vicious. What if the entire sense of calling was just elaborate self-deception, a story I told myself to survive the years that felt wasted? What if I was about to step into something that would expose me as ordinary after all? My hand stayed locked on the steering wheel long after the engine was off. Tears mixed with the humidity inside the car. I did not receive a vision or a booming voice. I received a single, unadorned knowing that settled under the ribs. The one who kept the name hidden is the same one who is now requiring it to be lived out loud, and he does not traffic in deception. I stayed there until the rain softened. When I finally drove on, the road looked the same, but the body behind the wheel no longer felt like it belonged to a person still negotiating with fear. The next difficult conversation I walked into carried none of the old tremor. The memory of that rain-soaked shoulder became the internal reference that silence could no longer argue with. The thunder of this hour does not stay internal. It moves outward until circumstances themselves begin to rearrange around the new density you carry. Schedules that refuse to open will clear. Relationships that drained you will either transform or release with surprising speed. Opportunities that stayed just beyond reach will close the distance overnight. You will watch things move that have not moved in years, and the movement will not feel forced. It will feel like gravity finally pointing in the correct direction. The physical evidence will accumulate until denial becomes impossible. Bank accounts will reflect the shift. Health that struggled will stabilize. Creative work that stalled will pour out with a fluency that surprises even you. None of it will be coincidental. All of it will be the external signature of a name that has been fully authorized to function. The silence that covered the earlier years has reached its final boundary. The covering that protected the formation process is being lifted by the same hand that placed it. What was concealed for safety is now being disclosed for assignment. The long quiet has served every purpose it was given. It refined the motives, strengthened the vessel, and timed the release so that nothing would be wasted. That quiet is lifting like a curtain whose cords have been cut. The revealing is not a future hope. It is the present action of heaven over your life. The name is no longer held in reserve. It is active, audible, and already altering the trajectory of everything connected to you. You will not need to announce the change. The change will announce itself through the unmistakable difference in how you occupy space, how decisions form, how peace remains when pressure arrives. The old season required endurance. This one requires only willingness to keep walking in the substance that has already been given. The thunder is not coming. The thunder is here, moving through bone and blood and circumstance, rewriting the physical record of a life that was kept hidden until the exact moment it could be lived without reduction. The road ahead no longer asks you to prove readiness. Readiness has been established in the dark and is now being expressed in the open. Every claim made over you in the quiet is finding its full volume. The body knows it. The atmosphere knows it. The days ahead will confirm it with increasing clarity until the last residue of the hidden years has been replaced by the unmistakable evidence of a life fully released into its appointed weight. Speak these words out loud right now. Do not whisper them in your mind. Let your actual voice carry them into the air of the room where you sit. Say them slowly, with the full weight of the hour that has opened over you. I am chosen. I am anointed. I am set apart. My name is no longer hidden. I walk in the shift that heaven has released. Say them again if you need to. Let the sound of your own voice settle into the walls, into the floor, into the places inside you that still carried residue of the old silence. Did you feel that shift? That quiet click behind the ribs. That sudden expansion in the chest as if more air became available. That sense that something previously locked has turned. It is not imagination. It is recognition. The declaration did not create the shift. The declaration simply agreed with what heaven has already spoken. The agreement itself carries power. Stay in that agreement for a moment longer. Do not rush past it to the next thought. Let the truth you just spoke continue to rearrange the atmosphere around your body. The name that was kept is now active in the sound of your own mouth. That activation is irreversible. Provision is being realigned to the revealed name. The accounts that looked insufficient are already under new instruction. Resources that stayed distant are receiving fresh orders to move toward you by paths you did not construct. The days of stretching every dollar until it snapped are ending. Fresh supply is authorized for every assignment that belongs to this hour. You will watch money find you without the old scramble. You will notice doors of increase opening where only walls used to stand. The provision is not generic. It is measured to the exact weight of the calling now active in you. Relationships are being sifted and restored under the same authority. The ones that drained the life from your spirit are releasing their hold. The ones assigned to walk with you in the revealed season are already being drawn near. Family lines that carried misunderstanding are receiving fresh light. Conversations that once ended in frustration will begin to carry mutual recognition. The loneliness that trained you is complete. Companionship that matches the frequency of your name is on its way. You will not have to chase it. It will recognize you. Health is responding to the same release. The tension that lived in the shoulders, the stomach, the jaw, is being ordered to leave. Sleep is being restored. Energy that felt rationed is expanding. The body that carried the hidden years is now being strengthened for the open ones. Strength is returning to places that felt depleted. Clarity is returning to the mind that once replayed every delay. The physical vessel is catching up to the spiritual substance already present. You will feel the difference in ordinary movements first, then in sustained endurance. Purpose is stepping fully into daylight. The assignment that waited in the wings is moving to center stage. Work that once felt like survival is becoming expression. Creative streams that stalled are flowing again with new fluency. Influence that was restrained is expanding to the exact measure written for this season. You will find yourself doing the work you were actually designed for, not the work that merely paid the bills or filled the calendar. The purpose is no longer theoretical. It is operational. Family is under fresh covering. Those connected to you by blood and by covenant are being touched by the same shift that has touched you. Protection is thickening around the ones you love. Clarity is reaching hearts that previously could not see. The generational residue that tried to travel forward is being interrupted. Peace is settling over households that knew only strain. You carry authority in this area now, and that authority is already at work beyond what your eyes can currently measure. Peace of mind is becoming the default atmosphere rather than the occasional visitor. The mental loops that rehearsed every possible failure are losing their volume. The background anxiety that colored ordinary days is thinning into silence. A steady knowing is taking its place, the quiet certainty that the one who timed the release of your name is also governing every detail that follows. This peace does not require perfect circumstances. It remains when circumstances fluctuate because its source is higher than the fluctuation. Go in peace. Go in power. Walk forward as one whose name has been spoken in the courts of heaven and is now free to function on the earth. The hidden years have finished their assignment. The revealed years have begun. Nothing that belongs to the old silence retains authority over your steps, your voice, your provision, your relationships, your health, your purpose, or your rest. As an act of agreement with everything that has been declared, type the word Amen in the comments right now. Do not overthink it. Let the simple word stand as your public yes to the shift that has already started. That single word becomes a marker in the spirit, a record that you received the hour when it arrived. You were born for this moment, chosen one. God bless you.